Okay, so right now here in the very center of San Jose, Costa Rica. And one thing before you get any ideas, I've made a video on three reasons why you should move to Costa Rica, and I personally love Costa Rica. But I think to every side, there's always two sides of the coin. And I wanted to point out in this video and show you 3 reasons why you should not move to Costa Rica. Or if you do, 3 reasons, things to be paying attention to before you move here to Costa Rica. And that has to jump into we'll jump into the very first thing. Number 1 reason why I would say not to move to Costa Rica, but I would say to think about it, is because of the prices. Like things are, and I have everything written down by the way, things are really expensive. Now we'll treat this video like I do most of them. We'll just do a little bit of a walkthrough. 3 reasons not to move here is things are expensive. Like the quality of life that you can get here, you can get other places for less than a third of the price here. So here, if I'd say if I can get a meal for 20, the quality of that meal I can get somewhere else for probably like 5. So that has to be considered. People don't talk about it a lot, and you can be fooled because it is so beautiful and the food is so good. But when you know what it's like out there, when you know you can get the same quality for a third of the price in other countries, where the other countries is possibly more easy to get around. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And it's more quality food in other places as well. And you're paying 4 times as much here. You start to look at it as like the sustainability of it is not there. Like if you were to go with a fixed amount, or if you're like me and you like to invest it, you're like, if I'm spending half the money, I can invest the other half. I'm not saving half, I'm investing it. So when it comes to that, and that's something that I never heard anyone ever talk about. No one ever talked about the prices of moving here. So many of you all, and I know so many people reach out to me who want to just start traveling the world, and you're starting out with just a fixed budget while you enhance your philosophy and psychology around money and investing. Here, you can really blow through a lot of money if you're not careful. The first night we got here, for example, going out to eat in the grocery store was probably like $150. And by the way, this is the very heart. If there was a very heart of San Jose, this is it. This is actually where I love filming and love being. But that's something that's really important for you all to remember, is that it is, oh wow, really windy today. Hope you can still hear me. It is expensive. And that is kind of like and I guess the downside of it being expensive is that when you know that the locals here only make $500 a month, some of them $800 a month, and you're spending, for example, we're paying around $1,600 for a place to live, we were missing out on the culture of how the local people live. And that's something that's really important for me. I love visiting a country where I can feel what it's like to be a local and how the locals live. But when my taxi driver is telling me that he only makes $700 a month, and we're paying $1,600 for a place to stay, and we just paid $130 for the taxi, you're like, this isn't how the locals live. This isn't what the locals are doing. And when that happens, you start to feel like I'm missing out on the vibe that I want to feel, that I'm part of them and feeling what it's like. So that'll be one of my reasons to not move here, is because of the price. The quality is great, but the price, you can get better quality for a third of the price. That'd be the easiest way to explain. And the second thing I'd say, the reasons not to move here is because of the weather. The weather here. I mean, I would say it's unpredictable, but I mean, if you can predict something is unpredictable, then doesn't that make it predictable? It's how I feel. Is the weather here, like I'm here right now recording this in September, but you can, people say that it's not even the hottest that it is. It gets much hotter. So this is their winter. But we're here now and it just rains so much sometimes. And it's not that I hate the rain, and that summer I spent in Poland really got me used to the rain. But when you understand how much it rains, when you're thinking like, at least like me, where I'm thinking of getting land and doing all this kind of stuff, because of the weather, things require massive amounts of upkeep. Something to keep in mind. So if you were thinking of getting a property here and you're thinking of building something on it, because of the weather here, you'd have to have constant upkeep. I personally think, and I could be wrong here, but I think or I could be mistaken here, is if you were to have a place here and start building a home or something in the middle of the jungle, kind of off grid, so to speak, if you're not taking care of it once a week, I think the jungle would take it back after like a week. The villa place, the place where we were staying at, and by the way, I know you probably want to see what's going around more so than me talking, but the villa place that we were staying at, people didn't stay there for 4 days next to us. And in that 4 days, it almost looked like the entire villa fell apart for the other people. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind, is because with the weather like that, things require constant upkeep. So if you're anyone looking to, for example, like have a place here and then be able to just leave that place, you'd have to be very careful, because you could end up leaving that place and coming back and it would look nothing like it did before. It will require at least every 3 or 4 days having some kind of upkeep. So that was one of the things that for me stood out to me, of like, wow, that's the sustainability of that kind of goes down. And you guys know me, I'm all about longevity and sustainability. If you've ever taken part of any of my programs, and if you don't know where to start, I definitely say start taking Project Alpha, which is kind of breaks down your beliefs and all this kind of stuff. But we talk about longevity, we talk about sustainability and attainability. Meaning, if I told you, if you could come in tomorrow watching this video and you could lose 25 pounds, I'll donate $100,000 to a charity of your choice. If you were able to do that, you could probably do that. Some of you wouldn't do it for 25,000, but if I were to boost it to 25 million, your brain starts to think different, and you're like, you'd be like, I could cut my leg off, or cut my arm off, or cut off half of my one arm and half of my one leg. You could do that, which is attainable, but it's not sustainable. You got about 2 or 3 days of doing that, and then you're gonna run out of places and things to cut off that lose the weight. So I'm thinking always like longevity and sustainability. And here, to have something that's sustainable means that someone would have to be there, and it would require deep upkeep if you were in a remote place like a jungle, because of how fast everything grows, because of the rain and everything. So if you're building something man-made, it's like, oh wow. If you're planting trees and all that stuff, you're great. But if you're building something man-made, it would require constant upkeep. And I think for me, that would be a reason not to move here, because there's other places that you can find land that's cheaper, more sustainable, more attainable and sustainable, and more accessible, which leads us into number 3, which is the difficulty of transportation here. Now, there's taxis, you can book private tours, you can do all this kind of stuff, but I found it wasn't as smooth. Like moving in the big cities was fine. Uber is very easy, but once you start to get off grid a little bit, it became very difficult. There was no like centralized, for example, taxi in each of the places. And by the way, a lot of the Ubers and all those are illegal here, as I just found out like a few minutes ago. So it makes it even more harder to get around places. So that transportation made things for me a little bit just like, you know, you guys know we were staying in the south. We were staying on the border of Panama. We were staying in a place called Puerto Viejo. And there was one really, really, really bad rainstorm. And in that rainstorm, the bridge got taken out in Limon. Maybe some of you guys remember this from 2021, in August 2021. And there was no way to get back to the north. There's no other way, because the middle of Costa Rica is all jungle. There was only one pathway, and the bridge was out. We ended up having to walk across that bridge, hike across it basically, because there was a huge pothole and there was only about 2 meters that someone could walk across, and we had to take another taxi on the other side. But that's a big deal. Having something beautiful is one thing, but you need to be able to get to it is number 2. I can hide some cool, amazing things around the world and have all these backup plans, but I can't get to it. That's a problem. And if you were to build something off grid, the further you get away from the center, the further you get away from being in kind of like here where I am in the center, the harder it is to get places. And one of the things is, once you go to the smaller cities, the roads get really bad as well, meaning there's a lot of potholes. When it rains, it floods. So getting to the places are tough. And more so, getting stuck in a place is very easy. One of the places we were staying is we got stuck in this monsoon, it seemed like, for 5 days in Puerto Viejo. The people were building, this Western couple was building this, they almost looked like they were building homes next to us in the field. And it just started raining, and for that 5 days I could see it almost start to seep into the ground. And it made me think about it, like, wow, we ended up having to walk. But if you can't get somewhere because of the transportation, and it's difficult to get through the mountains when it's pouring rain, and I've seen so many landslides and so many different things, and we haven't even started to talk about the crocodiles. When you start to think about that kind of stuff, the sustainability aspect of it makes you really think like maybe there's an easier place to do this, where it's cheaper, it's easier to maintain. If I go away, I know my house is gonna be okay if I leave for 2 weeks. And that's kind of a good feeling. That makes things a little bit more clear. So those are 3 reasons I'd say not to move here to Costa Rica, but you guys know I really love it here. Those 3 things I said are things that actually were one of the reasons why I was like not to stay here longer. You know, if things had been cheaper and it was easier to get around places and the weather had been a little bit better, then of course it'd be a place to stay. But like I say, I'm speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from the context for me is where I can be anywhere I want to be at any time in the world. So when you have that kind of option, you start to think a little bit different, where if I just sold my home and I'm really on a tight budget, I would have different opinions. I can make everything work. But I want to just be transparent with you all here. As you can see, Costa Rica is beautiful. I love it. Hope this video helped you all out. 3 reasons not to move to Costa Rica. I made a video on 3 reasons to move to it. And between me, on a scale of places that I can live forever, if you told me I was stuck in Costa Rica, I'd be fine. Like, I would learn to adapt to it. I learned to find new ways. But when I realized that I can just go or be anywhere, which I truly think deep down, we just have blocks that allow us to make us think that way, because we all can do whatever we truly desire to do. Then there's other places where I could go to do more with less. And I think less is more. So in that aspect, that's just why that's my thought and opinions. But I love you, Costa Rica. Pura vida. Muchas gracias para todos aquí. And on that note, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. As you guys know, Skills Academy is something that I created. In the link description below, it's totally free. Sign up for it, learn skills so you guys can start to do and create the life that you want. Remove all these blocks about money, about yourself, that you can't do it, that you're not enough, that you won't be loved, that you need to know the outcome of things. Remove all those things and then watch the beauty in your life happen. And that's what we talk about in Skills Academy. Link in the description below. It's totally free. And for you guys who are ready, Project Alpha is a great place for you to start. It was a great workshop with a bunch of people, about 8 or 9 videos in there, and really get you guys started off on the road and the path you're supposed to be on. So on that note, thank you for being here. Speak to you all later. And in the meantime, everyone, always remember to work hard, be brave, and don't forget to smile. Ciao.